reader Stephen Wing, who's a poet, activist, and author of Washed in the Hurricane, Poems for an Endangered Paradise, and Wild Atlanta, Green Spaces and Natural Preserves of the City in the Forest. Stephen, please take the podium.
Thank you, Professor. I feel like I'm in a parade of poets. What a scary thought. This is called My Language and My Skin. I am a poor man. I have only one language. The bilingual refugees who work the fields and orchards, the multilingual asylum seekers in detention, facing death by deportation, they are millionaires compared with me. But luckily for me, my first and only language happens to be the one that matches my skin. The language that conquered the sunset and ruled the waves with cannon shot and musket ball and bayonet. The skin that proved its supremacy with manacles and bullwhips, smallpox and whiskey. At my mother's breast, I formed my bones out of the grammar and vocabulary that spells out the contracts between the masters and the slaves, even today. It authorizes me to bully and belittle the bilingual waitress with false documents who brings my breakfast, the multilingual professor in exile from some foreign university who mops the floors behind me. From generations of barbarian forebears, I inherited this skin as white in certain hidden places as the paper between the words of every worthless treaty ever signed. It's my passport to travel the global dominions of the dollar, where dark-skinned people with unpronounceable names must learn my language to survive. I am a poor man, but thanks to my language and my skin, I own a single share in the multinational empire of the billionaires. My dividends accrue in daily doses of self-importance, standing to sue, might makes right, holier than thou, despite my defects, and I was here first. Not to mention that magical charm, innocent until proven guilty, and the smug presumption that it means everyone. I am still a poor man, but at least someone is more impoverished than me. My black and brown-skinned cousins so many times removed, the good-humored grocery bagger who secretly hates me, the fawning panhandler whom I secretly fear, all stare back at me through a fence barbed with privilege and electrified with impunity. As long as we speak the language of divide and conquer and see no deeper than the skin, each of us will fiercely defend our share of hardship and scarcity. But listen, all these foreign languages and unintelligible dialects that have landed on these inhospitable shores, how they swirl together in a multitonal music of joking and laughter, improvised and unrehearsed, a symphony of voices hushed to listen, speaking one at a time their testimonies of exploitation and abuse, their humble contributions to the wealth of the wealthiest nation on earth. I am a poor man. I have only one language. But luckily, my brothers and sisters of other tongues and skin tones are cautiously, warily beginning to teach me the art of translating language into living. We all have skin covering our inner sameness. We all have voices to sing our deeper uniqueness. Surely our boundless confusion of diversity only proves how rich we'll be, every one of us, if we ever learn to share that treasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. So glad that you are really on the parade ground for poets rather than military ground for that matter. So really appreciate that. Thank you. Karen Paul Holmes, please come and join us and grace us with your poems.
Thank you, Professor and Agnes Scott. And sorry, I messed up and didn't send my bio in. But I'm from Atlanta, and this is my second book, No Such Thing as Distance, which seemed appropriate for today's event. The first poem I'm going to read is about it's about the death of my mother, actually. She was born in Australia in 1923, and she came to the U.S. after World War II to marry my father, and she hadn't seen him for 3 years. So that's mentioned in the poem. War Bride. I didn't know, Mother. I didn't know until later, when I read that dying's not the time to bring up memories. Painkillers weren't supposed to put you out, but you hallucinated, thumb and forefinger sewing the air, voice clear. Who's the little boy in the corner? I thought it best to keep your mind alive, so I slipped home movies into the VCR, propped up your bed, my commentary forced, like spreading hard butter on bread. In those scenes, I was a child who never thought of your bravery, leaving Australia, family, the little roadster your father had given you, a job in his shop. You crossed the world, seasick in a converted warship, a wattle leaf on the roller coaster ocean, a train blur to Detroit. How did you trust Dad like that? You loved each other, yes, but I don't remember you having fun. We kids made you nervous. Migraines put you to bed, while the 5 of us failed to obey, play quiet as mice. Then, with Dad's Parkinson's, you became caregiver again. Mother, I'm sorry I intruded, yet I'm grateful we watched this movie. You turn away, shaking your head no, but spin back and step onto the in-ground trampoline. Legs and pedal pushers start to dance on hot potatoes. Arms grab air. You can't stop laughing. You get in rhythm, bounce higher, higher, knees bending to chest, an origami crane. And then, because of the unfortunate events in the Appalachian Mountains that everyone has just experienced, we were pretty lucky here in Atlanta, but there's a lot of devastation with people I know in Asheville, North Carolina, and other areas. So I happen to have a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains that did not get harmed. Our area was safe, but I thought I'd read 2 of my poems from that area. Lilacs easily outlive the one who planted them. High up in the Blue Ridge, when your hair has grayed, you catch the scent again, lilac, its certain purple plumes, and there you are in Flint, Michigan, age 12, with the pixie haircut like Twiggy's. You lie on top of the covers as perfume creeps across your pillow, even on windless nights. Even with the yellow curtains drawn. You might climb out your window onto the 1st-story roof to touch the top of the bush. Violet on a bright night. Plant a lilac in the Georgia mountains on the lake side of your cottage, or it might be cool enough to thrive. Plant it in your father's name next to the goldfinch feeder. Leave unpruned for profuse flowering. Bring long branches, blossom laden, into your kitchen. Place them in your mother's tallest milk glass vase. And I'm going to finish with one more poem. And again, these last 2 are in honor and blessings to all of the people who have suffered from this hurricane in this area and also Florida. Seagull morning, Lake Chateau. I wake to a duotone picture, pink lake and blue clouds, gray mountains, diving gulls. Sunshine reaches round Bell Mountain, catches the birds, illuminates them bright white. More seagulls than usual this morning, tissues floating from the sky. One comes close to my window, his wings rhythmic with black tips He dives toward his reflection on an image so clear on the still lake, it looks like two birds will collide. Their morning chores complete, 50 or more flock in harmony at the sandbar. Yet on the water, each glides solo, trailing a gleaming wake. Gulls winter here. Like all fleeting things, they're special to me. But in this January of record lows, why didn't they venture farther south? Maybe the birds come for the reason I do, to dance among mountains, where melodies, migrated on lips and fiddles, still hover, preserved for generations, and those who join their ancestral reel through crisp Appalachian air. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for bringing nature into this room. It's really needed this breath of fresh air as well. Thanks a bunch. We will move on now to Lynn Farmer. She's a veteran of this program, this series of readings we call 100,000 Poets for Change. Her poetry has been featured at readings in Shreveport, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Teaneck, New Jersey, Huntersville, North Carolina, and elsewhere. Her work has appeared in Snake Nation Review, Lullwater Review, Red Mountain Rendezvous, Chattahoochee Review, Poets, Artists, and Madmen, and others. She was awarded the Byron Reese Award, Chattahoochee Valley Prize, and the Warren Prize for the Academy of American Poets. Her collection, The Rare Persistent Light, won the Charles Dixon Chapbook Award. A native of Knoxville, Lynn has lived most of her life in Decatur, Georgia, as a career high school teacher, poet, photographer, and singer. And I can attest to this as well, that she's an extraordinary photographer, as much of an extraordinary photographer as she is a poet.
Thank Marcus and Agnes Scott always for this wonderful event. And a lot of us have been able to participate in for quite a while, and also invited many of our friends to come. It's good to see so many here. I want to celebrate all the brave poets here and online, and welcome everybody to this event. The epigraph for this poem is a quotation from Aeschylus, and it was quoted by Robert Kennedy at the time of Martin Luther King's death, and is inscribed in stone at the grave of Robert Kennedy in Washington, D.C. The epigraph from Aeschylus is, "Even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God." The title is "Into Our Own Unfinished Night." The jarring slam of the grand wooden double doors made me turn around. The easy night air split with echoes of importance and trembling disquiet. After sprinting down the steps of the Capitol just as the Navy Band finished its concert, he glided toward me at the edge of the Senate parking lot, his car right behind where I was standing. The awareness that I recognized him as I furrowed my brow and squinted into the darkness caused him to smile slightly, look down for a moment, and sweep his hair back from his forehead with his left hand, that familiar family gesture. "Are you?" I dared, when he was close enough for me to know for sure. And in almost a whisper he answered, "I am." He was ever the gentleman, stumbling upon this surprised and awkward high school student with a $12 gray and silver Kodak Brownie star mic dangling from her neck on a thin black cord. He fastened one button of his blue suit jacket, took a diagonal stance, and then, still in a shy manner, asked if I'd like to take a photo. When the first flash bulb fizzled He relaxed his pose, smiled in a kind way, and patiently said, "Try again." Back home, I sent a color copy of that square picture to his office, and it was returned to me with an autograph, blue inked across the back by someone, maybe him. He appeared to be just a regular guy, and I'm sure he was in many ways, despite the burdens of history and inheritance, hubris and hero worship. 3 summers later, I pinned a metal campaign button to my bulletin board, a plain white rectangle spelling out Kennedy in red. He would have won in '68. I was in Dallas with the choir the night he was shot at LA's Ambassador Hotel after winning the California primary. Then at Arlington, baffled by this lone white cross a week later and still on tour. At St. Patrick's in New York, flags diagonal at all of its great front doors and still flying at half-staff 1 week after his funeral. 3 Novembers ago, after many visits since the first, I saw that simple marker once again, and regarding more keenly those ancient words engraved in stone near the place where his body was laid. Words he recalled upon the death of MLK 2 months before his own. Words he spoke and maybe even believed. I longed for the wisdom promised by this and other sorrows. And I marveled at the chance connections that tie us fleetingly to one another. The casual steps that take us across the parking lot or through the hotel kitchen. The recognitions and the brief words that vanish from our consciousness around the next corner or stay with us far into our own unfinished night.
A lovely poem there, Lynn. Thank you for sharing that. Very moving, beautiful poem. Very pertinent too.
That was really amazing.
Next
Thank you so
poet
much.
participant, again, a friend who's participated many times. Tuwanda, Muhammed. She's a published poet and playwright. Her poems have been featured in Gwen Russell Green's creative collaboration in the Southeast Poetry Chapbooks, Daniel Pearl's Music Days, and the You Might Need to Bear This online poetry publication. She has performed her poetry at the Java Monkey Poetry Open Mic, and we all missed that, don't we? The Decatur Book Festival, the Mother May One stage play, and the 100,000 Poets of Change. Folks, please, join.
Greetings. The themes of my poems are love, loss, and life. We're going to start with Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived, whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child, and this kingdom by the sea will be loved with a love that was more than love. I and my Annabel Lee, with the love that the winged stars of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her highborn kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the clouds by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many more wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. And so, all the night time, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, and her tomb of the sounding sea. So that poem inspired this next poem that I wrote about my mother. And my mother was also a wife, but my poem is about her motherhood. She was Mother's Day walking in the flesh, physical and human and full of soul, because of the way she loved her children. It was a love that was more than love. The kind of love that football players think about when they say, "Hi, Mom," after they score that touchdown. The type of love that the little bird in the book, "Are You My Mother?" was looking for. The kind of motherly love that will fight a tiger to save her children. She never graced the cover of a magazine, even though she was beautiful. Never won a Nobel Peace Prize, but she settled major disputes at home with compassion and wisdom. Never won an American Idol, but her voice soothed crying babies. And she knew how to love. It was the kind of love that was more than love, the kind of love that kept her up all night praying for the safety of her children. Never wrote a cookbook, but collected stacks and stacks of recipes, or was a professional chef, but cooked gourmet meals for her family, or owned a fashion boutique, but always dressed with modesty and beauty. And she knew how to love. It was the kind of love that was more than love, the kind of love that she worked long hours to provide for her children. Didn't have a college degree, but was full of wisdom, was not psychic, but could predict the ending of failed relationships. Never rich, but was charitable, and she knew how to love. It was the kind of love that was more than love, the kind of love that even when she was sick, she worried about her children. Until one day, in a city by the sea, the angel of death came to her bedside and transitioned her to the other side. The cancer left her bedridden and frail, but even then, she knew how to love. The kind of love that was more than love. The kind of love that, even though she felt her time slipping away, she still held tight to the hands of her children. Now the sun never rises without me thinking about our mother. The moon never shines without me thinking about our mother. My memories are full of the moments shared with our mother, because she taught us how to love. The kind of love that was more than love. The kind of love that the world needs more of. And this last poem is about life. Excuse me. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods full up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness buzz a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds to sweep of early easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tuwanda and Muhammad, for that wonderful weaving of the familiar and the unfamiliar. Really moved by that.